I'm Jessica, 32 years old, and I just bought my first home after years of saving every penny. The feeling of having my own place was indescribable. Those beautiful hardwood floors and that master bedroom with bay windows were finally mine. I spent weeks planning the perfect housewarming party to celebrate this milestone. Little did I know that my sister Amber would find a way to hijack even this moment. I walked into my master bedroom to get ready for my party, only to find her and her husband's belongings already unpacked. Before I tell you how my perfect day turned into a nightmare, drop a comment about where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever had family take advantage of your kindness. Buying this house wasn't easy. For 7 years, I worked 2 jobs, my regular 9 to 5 as an accountant and weekend shifts at a local coffee shop. While my friends were out having fun, I was either working or saving. Every extra dollar went straight into my house fund. I tracked my progress with a little chart on my refrigerator, watching that number slowly climb toward a down payment. When I finally reached my goal and found this 3-bedroom colonial, I cried during the final walkthrough. This wasn't just a house. It was physical proof that hard work pays off. The house itself was everything I dreamed about: hardwood floors throughout the first level, a kitchen with a breakfast nook, and my favorite part, the master bedroom. It had these gorgeous bay windows that let in the morning light, an ensuite bathroom with a clawfoot tub, and enough space for both my queen-size bed and the antique vanity I'd inherited from my grandmother. The other 2 bedrooms were nice but considerably smaller. One I plan to use as a home office, the other as a guest room. My relationship with Amber has always been complicated. She's 2 years younger than me, and growing up, there was always this undercurrent of competition that I never quite understood. I was the responsible one straight. As college scholarship, steady career path, Amber was more free-spirited, which our parents euphemistically called finding herself. At 30, she was still doing that. Throughout our childhood, Amber had a habit of taking my things. My favorite sweater would mysteriously end up in her closet. The birthday money our grandparents sent would disappear from my desk drawer. When confronted, she'd either deny it or act like I was overreacting. What's the big deal? We're sisters. What's yours is mine. Our parents usually told me to let it go to keep the peace. As adults, this pattern continued in more subtle ways. She'd borrow my car for the weekend and return it with an empty tank. She'd ask to use my credit card for just one small emergency purchase that somehow turned into several $100s. I'd set boundaries, she'd break them, I'd get angry, she'd apologize, and the cycle would repeat. Despite this history, I invited Amber to my housewarming party without hesitation. She was my sister, after all, and this was a family milestone. 3 days before the party, she called me in tears. She and her husband Kyle had been evicted from their apartment. Something about late payments and noise complaints, the story wasn't entirely clear, and with Amber, it never is. "We just need a place to crash for a couple weeks, Jess," she sobbed over the phone, "just until our application for the new apartment goes through." I hesitated. My house was finally going to be mine, my space, my rules, my sanctuary. But they were family and they needed help. "You can stay in the guest room temporarily," I said, emphasizing the temporarily part, "but I need you to respect that this is my house." "Of course!" Amber sounded relieved. "You won't even notice we're there. Thank you so much, Jess. You're literally saving us." My boyfriend Marcus warned me when I told him. "You know how Amber is," he said gently. "Make sure you set clear expectations before they move in." I brushed off his concern. It's just for a couple of weeks. How bad could it be? The day before the party, everything was coming together perfectly. I'd cleaned the house from top to bottom, decorated with fresh flowers, and prepared most of the food. Marcus came over early to help with the final preparations. He hung the string lights in the backyard while I put together charcuterie boards and mixed the signature cocktail I had created for the occasion. Amber and Kyle arrived that evening with 4 suitcases and several boxes. I showed them to the guest room, which I had prepared with fresh linens and towels. "This is cozy," Amber said, looking around the room with a forced smile. "Kind of small, though." "It's just temporary," I reminded her, "and I need the other bedroom for my office since I work from home twice a week." Right, she nodded, but there was something in her expression I couldn't quite place. We all had dinner together that night, a sort of pre-housewarming gathering. Kyle was quiet as usual, scrolling through his phone, while Amber dominated the conversation with tales of their awful landlord and the totally unfair eviction. Marcus kept giving me knowing looks across the table, but I ignored them. This was a chance to start fresh with my sister in my new home. After dinner, I gave them a tour of the rest of the house, ending with the master bedroom. "This is my room," I said, unable to keep the pride from my voice. "Those bay windows were what sold me on the house." Amber ran her hand across my dresser, picking up my jewelry box and examining it. "This is huge compared to the room we're in. You could fit like 3 queen beds in here." "Well, it's the master bedroom," I laughed. gently taking my jewelry box from her hands and replacing it on the dresser. I've been dreaming about this room for years. That night, I went to bed feeling content. My house was ready for the party. My sister and her husband had a temporary place to stay, and tomorrow I would celebrate this huge milestone with all my friends and family. Everything was perfect. Little did I know what was coming. I woke up early on the day of my housewarming party, too excited to sleep in, despite having been up late finalizing preparations. The morning light streamed through my bedroom windows, and I lay there for a moment, savoring the feeling. This was my house. Mine. Marcus arrived around 10 with the ice and extra folding chairs we'd need for the party. He found me in the kitchen, double-checking my list. "You look happy," he said, kissing my cheek. "This place looks amazing." "I can't believe it's finally happening," I replied. "I'm a homeowner hosting a housewarming party. Adult life achievement unlocked." We spent the morning putting finishing touches on everything. I arranged the last of the flowers while Marcus set up the backyard for those who might want to eat outside. We moved furniture to create better flow for mingling, and I set up the bar area in the dining room. Amber and Kyle were still asleep, which was fine by me, fewer people getting in the way. At noon, I needed to start getting ready. Guests would arrive at 2, and I wanted to look my best. I grabbed my robe and headed toward my bedroom. The door was partially open, which was strange since I was sure I'd closed it. I pushed it open and froze. Suitcases not mine were open on the floor. Kyle's button-down shirts hung in my closet next to Amber's dresses. Their shoes were lined up by the bay windows. My bedside table had been cleared of my books and lotion, replaced with Kyle's phone charger and Amber's sleep mask. The bed had been made with unfamiliar gray bedding instead of my white duvet. For several seconds, I couldn't process what I was seeing. Had I walked into the wrong room? No. This was definitely my master bedroom. My curtains were still hanging, my paint color on the walls, but someone had moved in? Then it hit me. Amber and Kyle had moved into my bedroom. My bedroom. I stood there, speechless, as footsteps approached behind me. "Oh, you're up," Amber said casually, appearing beside me in the doorway. She was wearing one of my bathrobes. "We tried not to wake you when we moved our stuff." What is happening right now? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "We figured it made more sense for us to take the master bedroom since there are 2 of us," she explained, as if this were the most reasonable thing in the world. That smaller room was just too cramped with both of us and all our stuff. "You moved into my bedroom? Without asking me?" I was still struggling to comprehend the audacity. Amber shrugged. "I was gonna tell you at breakfast, but you were already busy with party stuff. It's not a big deal, right? That other room is fine for just you." I heard Marcus calling from downstairs, asking if everything was okay. I couldn't answer him. My throat had constricted, and I felt like I might either scream or cry, possibly both. Kyle emerged from my bathroom with a towel wrapped around his waist. He gave me an awkward nod. "Morning, Jessica," he said, as if this were all completely normal. "Great water pressure in that shower." "This is not happening," I said, finally finding my voice. "This is my bedroom, in my house, that I bought. You can't just take it." "Geez, calm down," Amber said, rolling her eyes. "It's just a bedroom. Why are you being so selfish? There are 2 of us and 1 of you. It makes more sense this way." "Selfish?" I repeated, my voice rising. "This is my house. I let you stay here as a favor, in the guest room." Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs, took one look at the situation, and immediately came to stand beside me. "What's going on?" he asked, though the scene spoke for itself. "Amber and Kyle decided to move into my bedroom without asking," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "Apparently I'm selfish for having an issue with that." Marcus looked at Amber and Kyle, clearly at a loss for words. "Look," Kyle finally spoke up, adjusting his towel. "We thought it was a practical solution. The master has more space, and there are 2 of us. It just makes sense." "What makes sense," I said through gritted teeth, "is for guests to stay in the guest room. What makes sense is asking before you take over someone else's space. What makes sense is basic respect." Amber's expression hardened. "Why do you need all this space anyway? You're just one person, we're a couple, we need more room." I was about to launch into all the reasons why her logic was insane when I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 12:30, guests would start arriving in an hour and a half, and I wasn't even dressed. "We don't have time for this right now," I said, taking a deep breath. "People will be here soon. We'll deal with this after the party. But to be clear, this is not okay, and this is not going to stand." "Whatever," Amber muttered. "It's not that big a deal." I turned and walked downstairs, Marcus following close behind. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "Can you believe this?" I asked him, my voice shaking. "Who does that? Who moves into someone else's bedroom in someone else's house without even asking?" Marcus put his hands on my shoulders, Amber apparently. "I'm so sorry, Jess. What do you want to do?" That was the problem. What could I do? Throw them out hours before my party, create a huge family scene with all my friends as witnesses? Neither option seemed viable. I don't know, I admitted, I can't deal with this right now. Let's just get through the party and I'll figure it out afterward. But as I headed to the guest room, apparently my new bedroom, to get ready, I felt like a stranger in my own home. The room that had been my sanctuary, my dream space, the room I had specifically bought this house for, had been taken from me in the most entitled way possible. And the worst part, this felt eerily familiar. Amber taking what was mine without permission. Amber assuming she deserved what I had worked for. Amber. Always Amber. Crossing boundaries I shouldn't have had to explicitly state. As I applied my makeup, trying to cover the redness around my eyes, I wondered how I was going to smile and play hostess when inside I was seething. But I had no choice. The guests would arrive soon, and I couldn't let Amber ruin this day I'd been looking forward to for so long. Even if she already had, the doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock. I plastered on my brightest smile and opened the door to greet my first guests, my coworkers Sarah and Tom, bearing a potted plant and a bottle of wine. "Welcome to my home," I exclaimed with forced cheerfulness, accepting their gifts and ushering them inside. My emphasis on "my" was probably too strong, but they didn't seem to notice. For the next half hour, I stood by the door welcoming friends, family, and neighbors into my house. Each time I said my home or my place, I felt a twinge of anger, remembering that my own bedroom had been commandeered. But I kept smiling, accepting housewarming gifts, and directing people toward the food and drinks. Marcus stayed close by my side, refreshing my drink a little more frequently than usual. He knew I needed the liquid courage to get through this afternoon. "How are you holding up?" he whispered during a brief lull in arrivals. "I'm fine," I lied, taking a large sip of my drink. "Just fine." By 3 o'clock, the house was full of people mingling, eating, and admiring the place. Several guests asked for tours, which I had been excited about giving until now. How was I supposed to show off my house when the master bedroom wasn't even mine anymore? "And this is the guest room," I said woodenly, leading a group of friends down the hallway. I purposely didn't mention that this was where I was apparently now sleeping. "Where's your room?" my friend Danielle asked innocently. Before I could formulate a response, Amber appeared as if summoned. "The master's at the end of the hall," she said brightly, gesturing for the group to follow her. "Come on, I'll show you." I watched in horror as she led my friends into what should have been my bedroom, pointing out features as if she were the homeowner. These bay windows are amazing, right? And the bathroom has this gorgeous clawfoot tub that I'm obsessed with. My friends looked confused, glancing between Amber and me with questioning expressions. "Amber and her husband are staying with me temporarily," I explained tightly. "Very temporarily." "We're so grateful to Jessica for letting us move in," Amber continued, either missing or ignoring my emphasis. Family helping family, right? That's what sisters do. I excused myself before I said something I'd regret. In the kitchen, I refilled my drink with shaking hands. This was not how my housewarming party was supposed to go. This was supposed to be my proud moment, showing off the home I'd worked so hard for, not watching my sister pretend it was hers. "Hey, you okay?" I turned to see Rachel, my oldest friend, looking at me with concern. Rachel had known me and Amber since elementary school. She knew our dynamic all too well. "No," I admitted quietly, glancing around to make sure no one else was within earshot. "Amber and Kyle moved into my master bedroom this morning without asking. They just took it." Rachel's eyes widened. "Are you kidding me? Please tell me you're kidding." I wish I was. They decided, since there are 2 of them and 1 of me, they deserve the bigger room in my house that I bought. "That's insane," Rachel said, her outrage on my behalf oddly validating. "Please tell me you're kicking them out." "After the party, I promised. I didn't want to create a scene with everyone here." "You're a better person than I am," Rachel said, squeezing my arm. "I would have thrown their stuff onto the front lawn." Our conversation was interrupted by my mother arriving, fashionably late as usual. She hugged me tightly. "The house is wonderful, Jessica. I'm so proud of you, honey." "Thanks, Mom. Let me get you a drink." As I led her to the bar setup, she spotted Amber across the room. "Have you shown your mother your bedroom yet?" Amber called out with a smirk. "It's so cozy." My mother looked confused. "I thought the master bedroom was at the end of the hall, the one with the bay windows you kept talking about." "It is," I confirmed tersely. "Amber's just confused about whose house this is." Before my mother could ask what I meant, Kyle approached with his own little tour group. "And we're thinking of repainting the master," he was saying casually. "The light blue is nice, but something warmer might be better for winter." I nearly dropped the glass I was holding. "Repainting? My bedroom?" I hissed at Marcus, who had materialized by my side again. "Breathe," he whispered. "Just get through the next few hours, then we'll deal with this." But it was getting harder to keep my composure. Throughout the afternoon, Amber continued making comments that implied she lived there permanently. She referred to our kitchen when pointing out features to guests. She talked about when we renovate the backyard, as if she had any say in the matter. Each comment was like a needle under my skin. The alcohol wasn't helping my mood. By 5 o'clock, I was on my fourth drink and finding it increasingly difficult to maintain my hostess' smile. When Amber started telling my neighbors about her design plans for the house, I nearly lost it. There are no design plans, I interrupted loudly. This is my house. I make the decisions about it. An awkward silence fell over the group. Amber gave me a look that was part hurt, part challenge. I was just making conversation, Jess. No need to be so territorial. It's not being territorial to state facts, I retorted. This is my house. I bought it. I pay the mortgage. You are a temporary guest who has already overstayed her welcome. The neighbors looked uncomfortable, murmuring excuses and drifting away from our confrontation. Marcus put his hand on my arm in warning, but I was beyond caring about making a scene. Months of planning this party, years of saving for this house, and Amber was trying to co-opt it all in a single day. You're embarrassing yourself, Amber said quietly. Maybe you should slow down on the drinks. That only made me angrier. Don't tell me what to do in my own house. You know what? Party's over for you. Go to your room, the guest room, and stay there until everyone leaves. Kyle appeared beside Amber, putting his arm around her shoulders. Everything okay here? Your wife is what's not okay, I snapped. Both of you need to step back and remember whose house you're in. Rachel materialized at my side, sensing the brewing storm. Hey, Jessica, I think someone's looking for you in the kitchen. Something about the food? It was an obvious attempt to separate us before things escalated further, and I let her lead me away, my hands trembling with rage. This is a nightmare, I whispered once we were alone. She's ruining everything. The party's almost over, Rachel soothed. Just a couple more hours. Do you want me to stay afterward? For moral support? I nodded gratefully. Please. I don't trust myself to handle this rationally right now. For the remainder of the party, I avoided Amber and Kyle as much as possible. I focused on my other guests, accepting compliments about the house with a tight smile, deflecting questions about my obviously tense mood. Marcus stayed close, refreshing my water rather than my wine, trying to help me sober up before the inevitable confrontation. By 8 o'clock, guests were beginning to leave. I stood by the door, thanking everyone for coming, accepting final congratulations on my new home. Each congratulations felt hollow now. How could I feel proud of my achievement when I couldn't even claim my own bedroom? As the last guest departed, except for Rachel, who was helping Marcus clean up, I closed the front door and leaned against it, exhausted emotionally and physically. The confrontation I'd been postponing all day could no longer be avoided. It was time to reclaim my house. With the last guest gone and the door firmly closed, I took a deep breath and turned to face my living room. Marcus and Rachel were quietly gathering empty glasses while Amber lounged on my sofa, scrolling through her phone as if nothing was wrong. Kyle was nowhere to be seen, probably hiding in MY bedroom. Amber, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. We need to talk. Now. She looked up from her phone, her expression immediately defensive. If this is about earlier, you're the one who made a scene, not me. This is about you moving into my bedroom without permission, I replied, walking toward her. This is about you acting like you own my house. This is about you, once again, taking what's mine and expecting me to just accept it. Amber rolled her eyes and set her phone down. You're still on that? I told you, it makes more sense for us to have the bigger room. I don't see why you're being so dramatic about it. Dramatic? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. This is my house! I worked 2 jobs for 7 years to save for it. I am the only name on the mortgage. You are here as a guest because I was kind enough to help you when you got evicted. Marcus moved to stand beside me, a silent show of support. Rachel had stopped cleaning and was watching the confrontation with wary eyes. Where's Kyle? I demanded. He should be part of this conversation too. I'll get him, Marcus offered, clearly glad for a reason to step away from the tension. He disappeared down the hallway toward the master bedroom. You know, this is exactly why I didn't ask permission, Amber said, crossing her arms. Because I knew you'd overreact. You always do. You've always been so possessive about your things. Possessive? I was nearly shouting now. It's my B-room in my house! That's not being possessive, that's basic ownership. Kyle and Marcus returned, Kyle looking uncomfortable but also somewhat defiant. Kyle, I addressed him directly. Do you think it's appropriate to take over the master bedroom in someone else's house without asking? He shrugged, avoiding eye contact. Like Amber said, there are 2 of us and 1 of you. It's just more practical. That's not how being a guest works, Rachel interjected, unable to stay silent any longer. When someone invites you into their home, you don't take over their space. We're not just guests, Amber countered. We're family, and family helps family. Jessica has this whole house to herself. Is it really so terrible to share the biggest bedroom with us? Yes, it is terrible, I exploded. Because it's not about the bedroom, it's about respect. It's about boundaries. It's about you thinking you're entitled to whatever I have, just like you always have. What is that supposed to mean? Amber asked, her voice rising to match mine. It means this isn't new behavior. I was beyond caring about keeping my thoughts to myself now. My whole life you've taken my things without asking. My clothes, my money, my toys when we were kids. Remember when Grandma gave me that silver locket for my birthday and I found it in your jewelry box? Or when you borrowed my car for a weekend and returned it with a dent and no gas? Or when you used my credit card for an emergency that turned out to be concert tickets? That was different. No, it wasn't. I cut her off. It's exactly the same. You take what's mine, act like you deserve it, and then make me feel bad for being upset. Well, I'm done feeling bad. This is my house. That is my bedroom. And you two need to move your stuff back to the guest room right now. Kyle finally spoke up, his tone condescending. Look, Jessica, you're clearly upset, but we're actually doing you a favor by moving in. You are living here all alone. Now you have company. And we can help with bills once we get back on our feet. I stared at him in disbelief. A favor? Favor? I didn't ask for roommates. I didn't ask for company. I wanted to live alone in my house that I bought with my money. And now you're acting like I should be grateful that you invaded my space and took over my bedroom? You invited us to stay, Amber pointed out, in the guest room. I enunciated each word as if speaking to a child. Temporarily, not in my bedroom, ever. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder, trying to de-escalate. Maybe everyone should take a break and cool down. We can discuss this more rationally tomorrow. No, I shook my head firmly. This gets resolved tonight. I am not spending another night out of my own bedroom. So, you're kicking us out? Amber's voice turned wounded. Your own sister? Making us homeless? There it was, the emotional manipulation I should have seen coming. I'm not kicking you out, I clarified, trying to rein in my anger. I'm telling you to move your things back to the guest room where they belong. You can still stay here temporarily while you look for a new place, but you will respect my space and my rules. And if we don't? Kyle challenged, stepping closer to Amber. What then? You'll throw our stuff onto the lawn? Call the police on your own sister? The thought had crossed my mind, but I wasn't about to admit it. Then you'll be proving exactly what kind of people you are, I said coldly. Selfish, entitled, and disrespectful. Is that really how you want to be? We're the selfish ones? Amber laughed bitterly. You had this whole house to yourself while we lost our apartment. You could easily sleep in the smaller room for a few weeks, but no Queen Jessica needs her precious master suite. I bought this house, I shouted, finally losing the last of my composure. I worked for it. I earned it. You did nothing. The room fell silent after my outburst. Rachel and Marcus exchanged concerned glances. Kyle looked uncomfortable, and Amber. Amber looked hurt, which made me feel guilty despite my justified anger. So, that's what you really think, she said quietly. That I've done nothing with my life, that I don't deserve nice things because I haven't earned them like you have. That's not what I... No, it's exactly what you meant, she interrupted. You've always thought you were better than me. The responsible one. The successful one. Well, not all of us had it as easy as you did, Jessica. I nearly choked on the absurdity of that statement. Easy? You think my life has been easy? Working 2 jobs while going to college? Saving every penny while you were out partying? Getting passed over for promotions because I couldn't stay late due to my second job? There was nothing easy about it! You always got the support, Amber said, tears forming in her eyes. Mom and Dad always bragged about you, always helped you. Why can't you be more like Jessica? That's all I heard growing up. Part of me wanted to dismiss this as another manipulation tactic, but there was something raw in her voice that gave me pause. Had that really been her experience? Had I been so focused on my own journey that I'd missed how she felt? But then I remembered the situation at hand. My sister and her husband had taken over my bedroom without permission, and I hardened my heart again. Whatever issues you have with our parents or with me, they don't give you the right to take what isn't yours, I said firmly. This is my house, that is my bedroom, end of discussion. I turned and walked toward the hallway, intending to go to the master bedroom and start moving their things out myself if necessary. If you touch our stuff, you'll regret it, Kyle called after me, his tone menacing. I froze, then slowly turned back to face him. Are you threatening me? In my own house? Marcus stepped between us, his posture protective. That's enough, Kyle. You don't speak to Jessica that way. Not ever, but especially not here. Rachel moved to stand beside me, her presence a comfort. I think you both need to reassess your position here, she said to Amber and Kyle. Your guests. Jessica is being generous, letting you stay at all after what you pulled today. Amber looked at the 3 of us, me, Marcus, and Rachel, standing united against her and Kyle. Something in her expression shifted, perhaps realizing she'd miscalculated. Fine, she said after a long moment. We'll move back to the guest room. But I want it noted that I think you're being incredibly selfish, Jessica. Noted, I replied coldly. Now move your things. Tonight. With that final command, I walked to the kitchen, my legs shaking with adrenaline and emotion. Behind me, I heard Kyle and Amber arguing in hushed tones, but I couldn't make out the words. I didn't care I had won this battle, but as I leaned against the kitchen counter, I wondered at what cost. The housewarming party that was supposed to be a joyous celebration had turned into a family war zone. My relationship with my sister, already strained, might be damaged beyond repair. And even though I had stood my ground, I didn't feel victorious, just exhausted and sad. Marcus came into the kitchen and wrapped his arms around me without a word. I leaned into his embrace, finally letting the tears I'd been holding back all day fall silently. "You did the right thing," he whispered against my hair. "This is your house. Your rules." I nodded against his chest, wanting desperately to believe him, but as I heard Amber and Kyle moving around in my bedroom, gathering their things, I couldn't help but wonder if there had been a better way to handle this, a way that wouldn't have left me feeling hollow on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. The night ended with a tense silence filling the house. Amber and Kyle had moved back to the guest room without further verbal confrontation, though the slamming of drawers and heavy footsteps conveyed their displeasure clearly enough. Rachel had gone home after making me promise to call her the next day. And I was finally back in my own bedroom, the sheets changed, the space reclaimed, but the victory tasting bittersweet. As I lay in bed that night, Marcus having gone home to give me space to process, I stared at the shadows my beloved bay windows cast on the ceiling and wondered how something as simple as a bedroom could cause such destruction. I woke up the next morning to the sound of cupboards opening and closing in the kitchen. For a blissful moment, I forgot everything that had happened, content in my own bed, in my own room. Then the events of the previous day came flooding back, and I groaned into my pillow. After a few minutes of debating whether I could just stay in bed all day and avoid the situation, I finally dragged myself up. It was Sunday, normally a day I'd spend leisurely enjoying my new home, maybe gardening or setting up my office. Instead, I had to deal with the aftermath of yesterday's confrontation. I got dressed in jeans and a sweater, ran a brush through my hair, and steeled myself before heading to the kitchen. There I found Amber rearranging my cabinets, moving glasses and plates to different shelves than where I had carefully organized them. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice still raspy from sleep. She glanced at me briefly before continuing her task. "The way you had these organized makes no sense. Glasses should be near the refrigerator, not the stove." I took a deep breath, reminding myself that picking another fight first thing in the morning wouldn't help anything. I had them organized the way I wanted them. Please put them back. "I'm just trying to help," she said, but her tone suggested otherwise. "This kitchen setup is really inefficient." "It's my kitchen to set up how I want," I replied, keeping my voice as even as possible. "Please respect that." She slammed a cabinet door shut. "Fine, whatever, everything has to be your way." I ignored the bait and went to make coffee, only to discover she had reorganized that area too. My coffee maker was unplugged, moved to a different counter, and my carefully arranged selection of beans and mugs was completely rearranged. "Amber? Seriously?" She shrugged. "The other counter has better light for making coffee, anyone would tell you that." This passive-aggressive behavior was clearly retaliation for last night. Before I could respond, Kyle wandered in, heading straight for my refrigerator. "Hey, morning," he mumbled, pulling out ingredients for what looked like a substantial breakfast. "Hope you don't mind we went grocery shopping using your fridge list. Figured we'd contribute since we're staying here." Under normal circumstances, that might have been a thoughtful gesture. But the way he emphasized, "since we're staying here," made it clear this was another boundary push, establishing themselves as more than temporary guests. "Actually," I said, watching as he cracked eggs into a bowl, "I need to talk to both of you about that. About your stay here." Amber turned to face me, arms crossed defensively. "If you're kicking us out because of yesterday—" "I'm not kicking you out," I interrupted, "but we need to establish some clear rules if you're going to continue staying here." "Rules?" Kyle scoffed. "What are we, teenagers?" "No, you're guests in my home," I replied firmly, "and after yesterday, it's obvious we need clear boundaries." Before I could continue, Kyle's phone rang. He answered it and wandered into the living room, completely dismissing our conversation. Amber watched him go, then turned back to me. "Look, we said we'd stay in the smaller room, okay? Can't we just move past this?" "It's not just about the bedroom," I explained. "It's about respect. You can't just rearrange my kitchen without asking. You can't act like you live here permanently. And Kyle can't tell me I'll regret it if I touch your things. That's not okay." "He didn't mean anything by that," Amber said dismissively. "He was just upset." "That doesn't make it acceptable," I insisted, "and there's something else we need to discuss. How long are you planning to stay here?" Amber's expression turned guarded. "I told you, until our application for the new apartment goes through." "And when will that be?" "I don't know exactly. A couple of weeks, maybe a month. These things take time." "A month." The thought made my stomach clench. A month of this tension, this boundary pushing, this walking on eggshells in my own home. "Have you even submitted an application?" I asked, suddenly suspicious. "For a specific apartment?" Amber's hesitation told me everything I needed to know. "Oh my God," I said, realization dawning. You don't have a plan, do you? You're just planning to stay here indefinitely. That's not true, she protested, but her eyes didn't meet mine. We're looking. It's just hard to find affordable places right now. Kyle returned from the living room, sliding his phone into his pocket. His next words confirmed my worst fears. Hey, Jessica. I hope it's cool, but I told my boss we're setting up a home office in your second bedroom. I'm going to be working remotely for a while. I stared at him, momentarily speechless. The second bedroom is my office. I work from home twice a week. Kyle waved his hand dismissively. We can share it. I only need it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. The days I work from home, I pointed out. And you can't just decide to set up an office in my house without asking me. Well, where else am I supposed to work? He asked, as if I was being unreasonable. We've already downgraded to the smaller bedroom. Now you want me to not have an office too? This was getting out of hand. I needed reinforcements. I grabbed my phone from the counter. I need some air, I said, walking toward the front door. Don't rearrange anything else while I'm gone. Once outside, I called Rachel, pacing back and forth on my front lawn. They're taking over my house, I said when she answered, not bothering with a greeting. Amber rearranged my kitchen, and now Kyle wants to turn my home office into his office. And they don't even have a plan for moving out. They could be here for months. Oh, Jessica, Rachel sighed. I was afraid of this. They're establishing themselves. The longer they stay, the harder it will be to get them to leave. What do I do? I asked desperately. I can't live like this. This was supposed to be my sanctuary, my achievement. Now it feels like I'm the guest in my own home. You need to set firm boundaries, Rachel advised, write them down, make it official, include a move-out date. They'll just ignore them like they've ignored everything else. Then you might need to take more drastic measures, Rachel said carefully. You might need to formally evict them. Evict my own sister? The thought made me sick. I can't do that. Jessica, listen to me. This pattern with Amber isn't new. She takes and takes until you have nothing left to give, and then she makes you feel guilty for not giving more. You've worked too hard for this house to let her take it from you, too. Deep down, I knew Rachel was right. This was a pattern, one that had played out countless times throughout our lives, but this time was different. This time, I had too much to lose. Let me think about it, I said finally. I'll talk to Marcus, see what he thinks. As if summoned by his name, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus asking how I was doing. I asked if he could come over, and he replied that he was already on his way. By the time I went back inside, Amber and Kyle had finished making breakfast. They were sitting at my dining table, using my dishes, drinking from my mugs, acting completely at home. They didn't offer me any of the food they'd made using my groceries. Everything okay? Amber asked, not sounding particularly concerned. Marcus is coming over, I replied, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Kyle made a face. Again? He's here all the time. Don't you guys ever hang out at his place? The audacity of that question nearly made me drop my mug. He's my boyfriend. This is my house. He's welcome here anytime. I'm just saying it would be nice to have some space sometimes, Kyle continued. It feels crowded with him here too. That was the breaking point. The absolute breaking point. You don't get to dictate who comes to my house, I shouted, all attempts at keeping calm abandoned. You don't get to rearrange my kitchen. You don't get to take over my office. This is my house that I bought with my money after working 2 jobs for 7 years. Amber and Kyle stared at me, wide-eyed at my outburst. You are guests here, I continued, my voice shaking with rage. Temporary guests. Not permanent residents, not co-owners, guests. And if you can't respect that, then you need to find somewhere else to stay. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. I stormed to the front door and flung it open to find Marcus standing there, looking concerned. I heard yelling, he said. Are you okay? I pulled him inside and shut the door. No, I'm not okay. They're trying to take over my entire house now. The kitchen, the office, telling me when you can be here. I can't do this, Marcus. I can't. He pulled me into a hug, murmuring soothing words as I fought back tears of frustration. Over his shoulder, I saw Amber and Kyle watching from the dining room. Amber's expression, a mix of defiance and something else. Was it guilt, regret? I couldn't tell, and at that moment I didn't care. Let's go somewhere and talk, Marcus suggested. Get some perspective. I nodded gratefully, grabbing my purse and keys. As we headed for the door, Amber called out. So you're just leaving in the middle of a discussion? This wasn't a discussion, I replied without turning around. This was me finally realizing what I should have known all along, that nothing I have is safe from you taking it, not even my home. As Marcus drove us to his apartment, I stared out the window in silence. The neighborhood I had been so excited to join, the community I had dreamed of being part of, now felt tainted by this situation. At Marcus's place, I collapsed onto his couch, emotionally drained. I don't know what to do, I admitted. If I kick them out, I'm the heartless sister who made her own family homeless. If I let them stay, they'll keep pushing and pushing until I have nothing left that's truly mine. Marcus sat beside me, taking my hands in his. You know what I think? I think you need to stop worrying about how this looks to other people and start prioritizing yourself. You've earned that house. You've earned the right to enjoy it on your terms, and anyone who would judge you for protecting that doesn't understand what it cost you. As his words sank in, I felt something shift inside me. He was right. I had spent my entire relationship with Amber worrying about being the bad guy, the selfish sister, the one who wouldn't share. But this wasn't about sharing. This was about respect, about boundaries, about recognizing the difference between generosity and exploitation. I need to take back control, I said, sitting up straighter, not just of my house, but of this entire dynamic. Marcus nodded encouragingly. So what's the plan? For the first time since discovering Amber and Kyle in my bedroom, I felt a sense of clarity. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I'm going to set clear, non-negotiable boundaries, I declared, and if they can't respect them, they need to leave. No guilt, no manipulation, no more chances. I'm with you, Marcus assured me. Whatever you decide. As we spent the day strategizing, researching tenant rights, even though Amber and Kyle weren't technically tenants since they weren't paying rent, and preparing for what would undoubtedly be a difficult confrontation, I felt stronger with each passing hour. This was my house, my achievement, my sanctuary, and it was time to reclaim it. The next morning, I took a day off work. This situation had consumed enough of my time and energy I needed to resolve it once and for all. I texted my friend Leah, a real estate attorney, asking for advice. She offered to meet for coffee and bring some resources. Technically, they're not tenants since they're not paying rent and don't have a lease, Leah explained as we sat at a corner table in a cafe far from my neighborhood. But they're not just guests either if they've established any kind of residency. The safest approach is to give them formal written notice to vacate. How long do I have to give them? I asked, taking notes on my phone. 30 days is standard, she replied, but since there's no lease and no rent exchange, you have more flexibility. I'd still recommend 30 days to be safe, though. She slid a template across the table. Use this. Fill in the details, print 2 copies, have them sign one, and keep it for your records. I thanked her profusely, feeling more confident with an actual legal document in hand. One more thing, she added as we were leaving. Change the lock on your bedroom door. You're allowed to secure your personal space, even with others living in the house. It was excellent advice. On the way home, I stopped at a hardware store and bought a new doorknob with a keyed lock for my bedroom door. I also picked up a small security camera for the common areas, not to spy, but to protect myself in case things got ugly. Back at the house, I was relieved to find it empty. A note on the counter informed me that Amber and Kyle had gone out for the day. Perfect. I had time to implement my plan without immediate confrontation. First, I installed the new lock on my bedroom door. Then I methodically went through the house, taking photos of how everything was currently arranged evidence in case I needed it later. Finally, I set up the small security camera in the living room positioned to capture the front door and main living area. Next came the hard part. I drafted the formal 30-day notice using Leah's template, printing 2 copies. Then I called Marcus and Rachel, asking them to come over for moral support when Amber and Kyle returned. While waiting, I moved all of their remaining belongings from my bedroom to the guest room. There wasn't much left after last night's confrontation, just a few items in the bathroom and closet, but I wanted to make a clean break. This was my room, not shared space. By late afternoon, Marcus and Rachel had arrived, and we were sitting in the living room when we heard keys in the front door. My heart rate immediately spiked, but I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was in the right. Amber and Kyle walked in, shopping bags in hand, and stopped short when they saw the 3 of us waiting for them. What's this? An intervention, Amber joked nervously. We need to talk, I said, keeping my voice steady. Please sit down. They exchanged glances but complied, taking seats on the sofa across from us. I've given this a lot of thought, I began, and I've realized that our current arrangement isn't working. It's causing tension and resentment, and it's not sustainable. Kyle immediately looked defensive. If this is about the office space, I held up a hand to stop him. This is about respect and boundaries. I was happy to help you both when you needed a place to stay, but certain lines have been crossed repeatedly. I picked up the 2 copies of the notice and handed one to each of them. This is a formal written notice giving you 30 days to find alternative accommodation. During that time, I expect you to respect the following boundaries. Amber stared at the paper in shock. You're evicting us? Your own family? I'm giving you notice to find your own place, I corrected. Which was always the plan when you moved in, remember? This was never meant to be permanent. But 30 days, Kyle protested? That's not enough time to find somewhere decent. It's standard notice, I replied, and more than generous considering you've paid no rent and have repeatedly disrespected my space and my rules. What rules? Amber demanded. You never set any rules. I shouldn't have had to tell you not to take over my bedroom, Amber. That should have been common sense, but since common sense seems to be in short supply, I've written everything down. I handed them each a second document, a list of house rules I created while waiting for them to return. The master bedroom is off limits, I read aloud. I've installed a lock to ensure this is respected. The second bedroom is my office during work hours. You may use it other times if needed. The kitchen, living room, and other common areas are shared spaces, but are not to be rearranged without discussion and agreement. Any guests you want to have over must be approved by me in advance. Kyle scoffed. This is ridiculous. You're treating us like children. I'm treating you like people who have shown they can't be trusted to respect basic boundaries, I countered. If you don't like these terms, you're welcome to leave sooner than 30 days. Amber's eyes filled with tears, a familiar tactic. I can't believe you're doing this to us. Where are we supposed to go? We don't have enough saved for a deposit yet. I had anticipated this reaction and was prepared. I'm willing to help with the deposit on a new place on 2 conditions. First, you respect these boundaries for the next 30 days. Second, you both actively look for a new place and can show me proof of your search efforts. That caught them off guard. They clearly hadn't expected me to offer financial assistance. How much would you contribute? Kyle asked cautiously. Up to $2,000, I said, paid directly to your new landlord, not to you, and only if you follow the rules I've laid out. It was a significant amount of money, but less than what I'd lose in peace of mind if this situation continued indefinitely. Plus, it gave them a financial incentive to cooperate. And if we don't agree to these terms, Amber challenged, though her voice lacked conviction. Then you need to leave immediately, I said firmly. This isn't a negotiation, Amber. These are the terms under which you can continue to stay here for the next 30 days. If you can't agree to them, then this arrangement is over now. Marcus and Rachel remained silent beside me, their presence a reminder that I wasn't alone in this confrontation. Amber and Kyle looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations couples have. After a moment, Kyle nodded slightly. Fine, Amber said reluctantly. We'll follow your rules, and we'll look for a new place. Good. I need you both to sign this notice acknowledging you've received it and understand the 30-day timeline. They signed without further argument, perhaps realizing I was serious and had legal grounds to stand on. One more thing I added as they handed back the signed document. I've installed security cameras in the common areas. Kyle's expression darkened. You're spying on us now? I'm protecting myself and my property, I corrected. After what's happened, I think that's reasonable. There was a tense silence as they absorbed everything. Finally, Amber spoke, her voice small. I never meant to make you feel disrespected, Jess. I guess I've always been jealous of what you have, of what you've accomplished. It felt good to pretend some of it was mine, even just for a little while. The admission surprised me. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly reminded myself that understanding her motivation didn't excuse her actions. I worked hard for this house, Amber. I sacrificed a lot. It hurt to have you try to take it from me, especially when I was already helping you. She nodded, looking genuinely remorseful for perhaps the first time. I know, I'm sorry. Show me with actions, not words, I replied, not quite ready to accept her apology. Respect my boundaries for the next 30 days, find your own place, and then maybe we can start rebuilding our relationship. With that, the confrontation was over. The tension in the room slowly dissipated as Amber and Kyle retreated to the guest room, closing the door behind them. You did great, Marcus whispered, squeezing my hand. Rachel nodded in agreement. I'm proud of you, Jess. For the first time since Amber and Kyle had moved in, I felt like I could breathe freely in my own home. I had set clear boundaries, provided a reasonable timeline, and even offered financial assistance. I had been firm but fair. Whatever happened next was up to them. That evening, I slept soundly in my own bedroom, secure behind the new locked door. The house was quiet, the atmosphere less charged than it had been in days. Whether that peace would last remained to be seen, but I had taken back control of my house and of my relationship with my sister. It wasn't the homeownership experience I had imagined, but it had taught me an invaluable lesson. Owning a home wasn't just about having your name on a deed. It was about establishing and maintaining boundaries, about creating a space that reflected your values and priorities, and sometimes that meant making difficult decisions about who you allowed into that space. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a renewed appreciation for my home. These walls, this roof, this space, they were more than just a financial investment. They were a sanctuary I'd earned through years of hard work and sacrifice, and I would no longer allow anyone to diminish that achievement, not even family. Exactly 30 days after our confrontation, I stood in my driveway watching as Amber and Kyle loaded the last of their belongings into a rented moving truck. The month had passed with surprising smoothness, perhaps because they knew I was serious this time, perhaps because the security camera served as a constant reminder that their actions were being monitored, or perhaps because the promise of financial help with their deposit provided motivation to behave. Whatever the reason, they had respected the boundaries I'd set. They stayed out of my bedroom, used the office only when I wasn't working, and even asked permission before having a friend over for dinner one night. More importantly, they had actively searched for a new place, showing me apartment listings they'd visited and seeking my opinion on their options. 2 weeks into their search, they found a one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood about 20 minutes away. The rent was reasonable, the location convenient for Kyle's work, and the landlord was willing to approve their application despite the eviction if they could provide a larger security deposit. That's where my financial help came in. As promised, I wrote a check directly to their new landlord, covering the security deposit and first month's rent. It was worth every penny to have my house back to myself and to potentially salvage my relationship with my sister. That's everything, Kyle announced, closing the truck's rear door. He hesitated, then extended his hand to me. Thanks for the help with the deposit, and sorry about everything. I should have had more respect for your space. I shook his hand, appreciating the apology, even if it had taken a month to come. I hope the new place works out for you both. Amber approached me next, her expression a mix of emotions. The apartment's nice, smaller than we're used to, but it's a fresh start. That's good, I replied, unsure what else to say. The tension between us had eased over the past month, but there was still a distance that hadn't been there before. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, she continued, about why I did what I did. I crossed my arms, bracing myself, and I've always felt like I was living in your shadow. You were always the responsible one, the successful one, the one who had everything figured out. When we moved in and saw your beautiful house that you bought all by yourself, I guess I wanted to pretend some of that success was mine too. It was the most self-aware I'd ever heard her be. That doesn't make it okay, Amber. I know, she agreed quickly. It was wrong. Really wrong. And I'm truly sorry. I studied her face, searching for signs of manipulation or insincerity, but found none. It really hurt, you know? Not just taking my room, but making me feel like I didn't deserve to have something that was mine after working so hard for it. She nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. I know. And I've realized something else too. All those times growing up when I took your things, it wasn't just about wanting the stuff. It was about wanting to be you. To have what you had, not just the physical things, but the respect, the approval. Her words caught me off guard. I had always seen her actions as entitlement, as taking what wasn't hers simply because she wanted it. I had never considered that there might be a deeper insecurity driving that behavior. You could have had those things on your own terms, Amber. You still can. I'm starting to see that, she said. This whole situation, it's been a wake-up call. I need to build my own life instead of trying to take pieces of yours. It wasn't a magical resolution to all our issues, but it was a start, an acknowledgement of the problem, and a step toward change. Only time would tell if it would last. I hope you do, I said sincerely, and I hope the new apartment works out for you both. She hesitated, then asked, can we still be sisters? After everything? The question hit me in the chest, reminding me that despite all the tension and conflict, this was still my sister, the girl who had shared my childhood, who knew all my embarrassing stories, who had once been my closest confidant before rivalry and resentment had driven us apart. We'll always be sisters, Amber, but rebuilding our relationship is going to take time, and it has to be based on mutual respect going forward. She nodded, accepting this. I'd like that. We hugged briefly before she climbed into the passenger seat of the truck. As they drove away, I felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that they were finally gone, sadness for the strain in our relationship, but also a cautious hope that perhaps this difficult experience might eventually lead to something healthier between us. Marcus arrived as the truck disappeared around the corner. He had been a constant source of support throughout the entire ordeal, and I was grateful for his presence now. How are you feeling? He asked, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Relieved, sad, hopeful, exhausted. Take your pick, I replied with a small laugh. How about we go inside and celebrate having your house back to yourself? I smiled, taking one last look at the empty driveway before turning toward my front door. That sounds perfect. Inside, the house already felt different, lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. I walked through each room, appreciating the space that was once again completely mine. The kitchen was arranged exactly as I wanted it, my office was set up for my work needs, and my bedroom, my beautiful master bedroom with the bay windows, was my sanctuary once more. Later that evening, I hosted a small do-over housewarming with just Marcus, Rachel, and a couple of other close friends. It was nothing elaborate, just pizza, wine, and good conversation, but it felt right. This was the celebration I had originally envisioned. Relaxed, joyful, without underlying tension or drama. As we sat in my living room, glasses raised in a toast to my home, Rachel asked, "So, what's the biggest lesson you learned from all this?" I considered the question carefully. I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential, especially with family. For years, I let Amber cross my boundaries because I felt guilty saying no because I didn't want to be the mean sister, but all that did was enable behavior that ultimately hurt both of us. Marcus nodded encouragingly. "You stood up for yourself, and look what happened. You not only got your house back, but Amber actually had to confront her own issues instead of just continuing the pattern." Exactly, I agreed. By always giving in, I was actually preventing her from growing up and taking responsibility for her own life. Standing firm was the kindest thing I could have done for both of us. Plus, Rachel added, "You learned that you're stronger than you thought. You handled this incredibly well, Jess." I smiled at that. It was true, I had surprised myself with my ability to stand firm in the face of manipulation and guilt tripping. The old me might have given in, might have relegated herself to the guest room indefinitely to keep the peace, but I had found a backbone I didn't know I possessed. I also realized something about ownership, I continued, looking around at the home I had worked so hard for. It's not just about having your name on a deed. It's about claiming your right to define your own space, your own boundaries. Homeownership is really just an extension of self-ownership, recognizing that you have the right to create a life that reflects your values and priorities. That's profound, Marcus said, squeezing my hand, and very true. As the evening wound down and my friends prepared to leave, I found myself lingering in the doorway of my bedroom, appreciating the peaceful space that was now undeniably securely mine. The conflict with Amber had been painful, but it had also been necessary not just to reclaim my physical space, but to reclaim my sense of self-worth and autonomy. Surprisingly, Amber and I began talking more regularly after they moved out. Our conversations were cautious at first, but gradually became more open and honest. With physical distance between us and clear boundaries in place, we were slowly rebuilding a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than old patterns of taking and enabling. She and Kyle were making their apartment their own, learning to live within their means rather than relying on others to bail them out. And I was finally enjoying my home the way I'd always imagined, as a place of peace, pride, and personal expression. The most unexpected outcome of the whole ordeal was how it strengthened my relationship with Marcus. He had seen me at my most vulnerable and supported me through a difficult confrontation with family. His unwavering support showed me that he was someone I could truly count on, someone who respected my boundaries and encouraged me to stand up for myself. 6 months after Amber and Kyle moved out, Marcus moved in the right way, with clear communication, shared expectations, and profound respect for the home we would now share. It was a completely different experience from having my sister and her husband as unwelcome house guests. This was a partnership, a conscious choice to build a life together in the space I had created. As I settled into this new chapter, I often reflected on the lessons I had learned through that challenging time. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. Enabling bad behavior hurts both parties in the long run. Standing up for yourself can be difficult, but ultimately liberating. True ownership extends beyond property to personal dignity and autonomy. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop rescuing them. Real relationships must be built on mutual respect, not obligation or guilt. Most importantly, I learned that home isn't just a physical space, it's a feeling of security, autonomy, and authenticity. It's knowing that you have the right to define your own boundaries and the strength to maintain them, even when it's difficult. It's creating a space that truly reflects who you are and what you value. In the end, that's what I had fought for, not just a bedroom with bay windows, but the right to honor my own needs and boundaries. And in doing so, I had not only reclaimed my physical space, but had also helped my sister begin to claim her own independence and responsibility. It wasn't the homeownership experience I had expected, but it was exactly the one I needed. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family or friends? How did it affect your relationship in the long run? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to hear more stories about navigating challenging family dynamics and personal growth. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and remember that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's often the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved.